conditions in rural Afghanistan right now. So in order to solve the problem, we have to first realize what has been causing the problem. So we cannot have a solution unless we know what caused it. So we think mainly what's causing the situation right now is the people. And we have a list of intangibles that may be contributing to the situation. So their control. And people have a complete lack of control on the situation that's going on right now in Afghanistan. So when the Taliban took over and ran them out, they were just followed. They just did not have any sense of community, or they did not have some community in that time. They've been able to reestablish that. In the time, they were just willing to leave, and they did not have a firm and steady ground. So health. So the health is obviously not an ideal situation there. There are malnourished children, not a steady supply of food and water, which obviously leads to poor health conditions. So the drive. The people right now do not have a drive for it to get better. They're waiting for the government to provide for them instead of going out and providing for themselves. Hope. So the people have a major sense of hopelessness right now. They do not have the means or abilities they think to provide for themselves. They turn to others, and instead of going out and taking control of their lives, they take back what's rightfully theirs. And the education. So clearly when they were ran out, the school system, the education clearly fell apart. They do not have the educational means, they do not have schools, so they have to work, if they want that, to rebuild it themselves.
So we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is basically, Maslow put this together when he saw how people act. He said basically you cannot move from one stage to the next once you have fulfilled that stage. So physiological, like eating, breathing, water, any type of your basic needs. Safety. If you don't feel safe, you can't have a love or belonging or community. And so I was talking about, you move to self-esteem, you move to hope, all that kind of stuff would build yourself up. And then you keep right is self-actualization, which is basically finding meaning in yourself. So in this, we kind of talk about how the people in Afghanistan are on the physiological stage. They are trying to find day-to-day food, water. Their children are malnourished and health, so they cannot move to safety. And even if they did fulfill this stage on one day and they found a source of food, if they had safety, they would not because of the Taliban. So we basically said, hope, we thought, would be on the esteem level because you cannot have a sense of hope without having food or safety or a family that loves you. So we thought that all of this stuff you had to fill this physiological stage and the safety stage before you can move on to some of the things that we would consider very important.
In their lack of fulfilling the hierarchy of needs, they fall prey to a vicious cycle because poor conditions and failed efforts to correct those conditions leave you with a need for change. When there's a need for change, there will be different sort of organizations or governments and groups that try and come in and fix them, and they will take over and they will completely change it in the idea that they are improving the situation
yeah, they cannot self-defend. And they don't have drive either, which is